Hey guys, it's Dash Zach back with another review, this time of the VGN Y2 Pro. This mouse is an off Ambi, sort of in the same vein as the MPO1 and the Inkai G Hero, which was a clone of that mouse, and sort of the MPO1S. It's my first mouse from VGN, which as we all know is associated closely or in some way with ATK. I know I was excited to get my hands on this mouse to see if VGN can really live up to the hype. So, did they somehow make a better version of the MPO1S? And does this deserve a spot on your desk? Let's find out. So here we have it, the VGN Y2 Pro. Right off the bat, you can see that sort of off Ambi shape here. I've actually never had a legitimate VGN mouse before. The F1 was sort of like the OG gangster budget mouse from a few years ago. It was 50 bucks. It had really good performance. It was the Chinese mouse to start with. Obviously, the market has exploded since then. And this is also not the first time that we've seen a sort of MPO1, MPO1S-ish clone, as Inkai has made the G Hero as well. But this is the first from like an ATK, VGN, vaxee brand side. And I can tell you overall, this is quite good. So let's hop into the versions and identify which one you might want to pick up. There are 4 versions, the Pro, Pro Plus, Ultra, and Ultra Plus. The Pluses being of a larger battery size. And there's also some weird charging feature that I did not get on this mouse that I don't really care about. Feel free to look into that yourself. They all have this coating, which I can tell you is very good. We'll cover that soon. A different Pixar MCU here on the Pro, which I found no issues with, but you can get the Nordic MCU on the Ultra. Oddly enough, a 1 gram difference here between the Pro and the Ultra's corresponding versions. I have the Pro normal, which is only 41 grams plus or minus 2, but even the 47 plus or minus 2 of the Ultra Plus is totally acceptable. 8K across the board. Big difference here though is going to come down to the switches. These Huano 100 millions here are green shell white dots, one of my most enjoyed mechanical switches, and I'm a moron getting the Pro because I love Omron opticals so much. There's no reason I should not have gotten the Ultra, but again, I'm a dingus. I looked at a good deal, didn't realize you didn't get Omrons in the Pro, and here I am. So that's what I'll be reviewing. Getting into the implementation of the mouse, these green shell white dots are very satisfying to click here. A perfect amount of pre and post travel, very, very spammable, and on the lighter side, I would say for the implementations I've felt of the Switch, not a lot of side to side play here at all, even if you try and force it. Obviously, we get a little bit heavier here at the top of the button, but even that, not overly heavy, and in general, very well implemented. I have talked to multiple people who have the Omron optical implementation or version of this mouse, and I've heard that the implementation of those is very, very good as well. So if you want to go for the Ultra to get the Omron opticals, I wouldn't hesitate to do so. Coming to the scroll wheel here, defined steps, very much on the lighter side. The scroll wheel is rubberized. I do like this texture, and then the click is plenty spammable, probably about a medium actuation. Coming to the side buttons here, they are a little bit forward leaning, and they are not coated. They are bare plastic. Not a feature that I love, but not one that really deters me if I enjoy a shape. In use, they are spammable, but they're not the most spammable I've felt. They're a little bit on the loud side, and they're a little bit heavy on their actuation, so not my favorite side buttons. Plenty functional in game, but we're to be nitpicky here, so why not? They do not sink into the shell at all, and I found no play on them, so they are very well implemented if you're okay with a slightly heavier actuation. Not heavy by any means, because I know some people ask in the comments, but just not the lightest and the most spammable that I've felt. Coming to the bottom of the mouse here, as you can see, slightly forward sensor position, but pretty close to central, and the skates are nice, large PTFE white skates. They are thick, they are well rounded, but I will say these are slow as shit. They are stock skates that I do not enjoy because they are too far on the slow side. Not anywhere near like the new M-Show stock skates that I do enjoy because they're much quicker. So where I domain this mouse, these would be skates that I would replace. If you are okay with the slower stock skates on mini mice, these are plenty high quality and you can definitely stick with these. Coming to the coating on the mouse, it is very good, very nicely rubberized. It's odd because it feels better than ATK coatings to me. I know ATK, VXC, VGN, they're all associated in some way, shape, or form, but this is a very nice coating on par with like M-Shows. Overall, 8, 8.5 out of 10. Very satisfactory, rubberized, and grippy. And then coming to the build integrity, if you push here on this right side, there is some flex. Not more than I'd like to see. Not something I'd find in game, but it is definitely there. On the bottom, again, a little bit. Nothing too crazy to write home about. Nothing here in the danger zone on the top. However, there is an egregious amount of side flex right here under the main button. As you can see, I can push this all the way in there and flare this front piece out here. So there is a crazy, crazy amount of flex there. No reinforcement really. I will give the disclaimer, in game, I don't know how you propose to put pressure on here that would cause any flexing. That's just not going to happen with your pinky and ring finger. However you would grip the mouse. Even if you're like really far forward like this and you pinch it, you can see I'm not really getting any flex there that would really affect me at all in game. But just to know, if you're someone who loves the rock solid build quality and I guess knowing this is here is going to bother you, there you go. So overall, the implementation of this mouse I find to be very, very good. That flex issue right there, not something that bothers me. This is not a perfect implementation because these skates are too slow for my liking. Obviously, I have somebody who has a metric F-ton of aftermarket skates that I can just slide on here, so it's not something that would bother me. But if you're someone who's just buying a mouse to keep it and you don't like the slower stock skates, beware of that. Otherwise, great clicks, great coating, solid scroll wheel, and a very well implemented mouse. So for shape comps, I'll be honest, I don't have an MPO1, MPO1S, or an Incot G Hero, so I can't do a side-by-side. What I can do though is jump into Eloshapes, my favorite tool in this situation. So as you can see here when comparing it to the MPO1, it's not a one-to-one shape. It's got a very similar shape to it, but the MPO1 has a bigger right side flare out here and overall just a larger footprint in general. It is a little bit longer. You can see that back flare is actually 3 millimeters larger at 66, and the heights do come out the same. As you can see here, the side profile very, very similar. A little bit more back presence actually here on the Y2, and a difference in scroll wheel position as well. And then looking at the MPO1S, more similar from the top down as far as the overall footprint goes. However, not nearly as tall, which is why when I come to talk about the shape of this mouse, I basically say it's like the MPO1 and MPO1S had a baby, which is again similar to the G Hero. Let's pull that up as well. For good measure, here's the G Hero, which is overall the most similar mouse to this. As you can see, the dimensions the same here, except for it does show again a larger width. It doesn't really display itself overall here too much, except for that it's more of a flare on the left here on the G Hero, whereas on the right side of the MPO1 there was more presence. But again, overall the most similar mouse. Although the Y2 does have just the biggest hump presence of any of these mice in the back, and being 39 millimeters, it is a relatively tall mouse. So as I'll talk about here a little bit, it will fill up your palm. So just something to be aware of as far as the overall hump presence of the mouse as well. And just so you have somewhat of a size reference, I'm just going to show it next to my OP1 8KB2 here for comparison. They are the exact same length, but this does have almost like a deep flare in here, like almost like a U2, like an M7. Like you have a very deep flare here on that off ambi shape, and then it really dips in here. There's a really nice sledge for your thumb to sit in. And the way I grip the mouse, my thumb sits directly in that sort of valley, which is very comfortable. But yeah, overall, a very similar footprint. These are pretty much the same length as well, except for, as you can see, very tall here throughout the entire duration of the mouse from the Y2, which we'll go into just a more like individual shape thoughts on that now. This is a shape that I always thought would be perfect for me because I was like, I love ergos, and I used ergos for a long time playing FPS. But then I found that I aim better with ambis, and I was like, maybe this off ambi ergo-ish mouse, maybe this will be the treat. This will be the one for me. I tried the MPO1S previously, and it was not tall enough, and the MPO1 just didn't quite feel right in hand. This Y2 for me also just does not feel quite right in hand. I could never get a comfortable grip on the mouse. Something about how deep this thumb groove was here, countered by just like this flare out here on the right, just did not do it for me. Like I would perform fine, but not absolutely amazing with it. Again, the mouse itself, very well implemented, well made, performs well. I will say again, jumping into performance here, pretty much on par with like ATK implementations, solid across the board. Didn't really see any hiccups, didn't have any crazy issues with wireless interference. Again, with all of these budget brands, not top tier sensory implementations, but very, very good, maintainable, usable by all means. Back to the shape, I don't know if it's like that combination of the flares that I was talking about. I don't know if it's how tall it stays throughout the duration of the mouse here. I never felt quite locked in with this mouse. If you're someone who liked the G Hero, but you want on opticals, you want a new mouse to replace that, like I can strongly recommend this mouse. If you're someone who likes a shape akin to the MPO1, MPO1S, but you really want some strong presence here in the back hump, solid recommendation from me. But this is not a mouse I'll be using in the future because it just did not fit my hand for whatever reason, which is okay because I have so many mice come across my desk. There have to be some that I wouldn't main, right? And then lastly, talking about the price, I got this mouse for $33 with a coupon code in AliExpress. A bit back, may have been like an early bird special. That's just not the case anymore. This is like mid 50s, low 60s most of the time in AliExpress before you apply your coupons. So for some reason, there was a jump in the price of this. Not sure if it's tariffs. To me in the US, maybe much, much cheaper overseas. Might be like a theme with how ATK is starting to charge a little bit more for their mice, at least the duckbill. But even direct from their site, this mouse is now $65 the Pro. The Pro Plus has a $10 upcharge. And then if you go all the way to the Ultra Plus, which honestly has minimal upgrades over this, but has on-run opticals, they're charging $100 for this on their site, which I think is absolutely absurd. This mouse to me is not worth $100. Maybe I'll get the duckbill and it'll be God's gift to mice and I'll change my take on that. But for now, I am skeptical. If you were to pick this up, I would go to AliExpress and do some bargain hunting. Or if you're going to get the Pro off their site, wait for a sale, get this below $50, at least in the low 50s. At that point, I do think it is a solid value. At $70, this is not quite on the same level as a Cyrox mouse, in my opinion. It's close, but I wouldn't quite pay that price. Maybe I'm overreacting here because I got a great deal on AliExpress because this mouse is well worth $55, but I just expected to see it cheaper when I came around to review it, and I thought you should be aware of that. There is a WebDriver, and no surprise, looks just like ATK's. Also is detecting my Attack Shark Hall Effect keyboard. Wait 1 second here. Okay, I'm now editing the Attack Shark keyboard in the software here from VGN. That was not on my bingo card today. Anyway, let's add the Y2. Here's the mouse. Still thrown off by the fact that just happened. DPI can be changed here. Performance-wise, no one was surprised. Looks just like ATK software. 0 to bounce, 2K. It's got all the settings you want. I tested with long distance in esports mode. No 20K setting yet here. A WebDriver, always a fan of that. Nothing else to write home about here. Grabbing weight on this entirely stock mouse, we have it coming in at 43.7 grams. Pretty lightweight. Feels great in hand as far as the weight goes, and has pretty pretty good weight balancing as well. Measurement wise, this is an interesting one. On the waist here, I have at 54.5 millimeters, as you can see right there. If I check diagonally here for the back flare, I get 63.8, but going straight across the widest point, it's only 62.7 millimeters. The claimed hump height of 39 millimeters is spot on. And overall, this unique sort of off ambi shape, while not a huge mouse in general, does feel pretty filling in my hand. And I think that's just due to the overall footprint size of the mouse. So that about wraps it up for my thoughts on the VGN Y2. It'll be a very familiar shape for those of us who have tried the vaccine mice for which this follows. And overall, even though it didn't end up being a very comfortable shape for me, I do think it is a generally well implemented mouse and is worthy of your consideration if this is the sort of shape that really does it for you. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. Follow me on X at DasherZach. Check out the Mousecast podcast as well as my peripheral Discord server. And with that, we'll see you.